Have you ever wondered what life was really like for the people who built the iconic pyramids and ruled the ancient world? What did they eat, wear, or do for fun? How did they balance the power of their gods with the demands of daily life? Ancient Egypt was not just about grand monuments and powerful pharaohs. It was a rich and the most fascinating civilizations in human history. Situated along the fertile banks of the Nile River, the civilization flourished for over 3,000 years. From the grand pyramids and powerful pharaohs to the daily life of farmers, craftsmen, and nobles, ancient Egypt was a complex society with its own culture, beliefs, and systems. In this video, I'll tell you about the everyday life of the ancient Egyptians, shedding light on their society, economy, religion, innovations, and also its location near Nile. Are you ready to step into the world of ancient Egypt? Let's got geography and the importance of the Nile. Imagine a vast, scorching desert with nothing but sand for miles. Yet, cutting right through it is a life-giving river, the Nile. Stretching over 6,600 kilometers, it's not just the longest river in the world, but the reason ancient Egypt thrived. Every year, the Nile flooded its banks, leaving behind a layer of nutrient-rich silt. This dark soil, known as the Black Land, was incredibly fertile and ideal for growing crops such as wheat, barley, flax, and vegetables. These regular floods were so dependable that the Egyptians based their calendar and agricultural cycle around them. Most Egyptians lived along the narrow strip of land beside the Nile, as the surrounding areas were mostly uninhabitable desert, known as the Red Land. Beyond farming, the Nile served as the main highway of ancient Egypt. Boats made from papyrus reeds or wood traveled up and down the river, carrying people, grain, stone, goods, and even government officials. Communication and trade were made possible by this river, which connected towns and cities across the kingdom. Without the Nile, Egyptian civilization would not have flourished and may never have existed at all. Social structure and daily life in Egypt. Imagine a pyramid. No, not just any pyramid, but the structure of Egyptian society itself. At the very tip, sitting on top like a king on his throne, was the pharaoh. Every layer below Pharaoh had its role to play, from the scribes who kept records to the hardworking craftsmen, farmers, and slaves who built and sustained this epic civilization. Life in Egypt wasn't just about power. It was about a system that kept everything moving, like a well-oiled machine. Pharaohs, and nobility pharaoh was seen as a god in human form, chosen by the gods themselves to lead the land. Talk about high stakes. The pharaoh had the power to create laws, lead armies, collect taxes, and even perform sacred ceremonies to keep the gods happy. And behind this godly figure were the powerful nobility, priests, high-ranking officials, and trusted advisors who helped steer the kingdom, ensuring Egypt stayed in its golden age. Living in luxury, the upper class had homes that were palaces in their own right, sprawling with rooms and decorated with vivid, colorful murals. You must have heard about Cleopatra. She is one of the most famous figures in Egyptian history, and the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty. She ruled Egypt more than 2,000 years after the building of the Great Pyramids, during a time when Egypt was no longer at its peak, but still held great importance in the Mediterranean world. Cleopatra was known for her intelligence, political skill, and charm. Unlike many of her predecessors, she could speak several languages and took a strong interest in science, philosophy, and Egyptian traditions. Although her family was of Macedonian Greek origin, Cleopatra embraced Egyptian culture and even presented herself as the goddess Isis to gain favor among her people. Cleopatra is often remembered for her dramatic relationships with two powerful Roman leaders, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These alliances were both political and personal, aimed at protecting Egypt's independence during a time when the Roman Empire was expanding rapidly. Despite her efforts, Egypt eventually became a Roman province after Cleopatra and Antony's defeat by Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Scribes and education. Then comes scribes. Scribes held an important and respected position in ancient Egyptian society because they were among the few individuals who could read and write. Their skills were essential for keeping detailed records of everything from taxes and census data to land ownership, temple offerings, and trade transactions. These written records helped the government function smoothly and allowed the civilization to be well organized. Becoming a scribe was not easy. It required many years of education and training at special schools called House of Life, craftsmen and artisans. Let me tell you about the real unsung heroes of ancient Egypt, the craftsmen and artisans. These folks were seriously talented. They were the ones making everything from stunning jewelry and intricate pottery to furniture, and even the amazing decorations you'd find in tombs. While they weren't exactly sitting at the pharaoh's dinner table, they were still highly valued for their skills. Imagine the level of respect they got. Everyone needed their expertise. A lot of them worked on big-time projects like the massive pyramids or grand temples, with commissions straight from the pharaoh or temples. Talk about living the dream. These artisans didn't just make pretty things for the rich and famous. They helped bring Egypt's iconic structures to life. It's safe to say that without these craftsmen, Egypt wouldn't have been the spectacular civilization we admire today. So, next time you see a beautiful ancient Egyptian artifact, just remember, these talented creators were the magic makers behind it all, farmers and laborers. When you think about ancient Egypt, don't forget the real heroes, the farmers. These folks were out there in the fields, working long hours to grow wheat, barley, vegetables, and fruits, making sure the entire civilization had enough to eat. But they didn't stop at crops. They also raised animals like cattle, goats, and ducks. Life for these farmers wasn't a walk in the park. They toiled under the hot sun and had to hand over a portion of their harvest as taxes. But in exchange, they were protected by the laws and played a critical role in keeping Egypt fed and thriving. As the farming season came to a close, some farmers and laborers switched gears and worked on massive construction projects. Contrary to popular belief, it wasn't just slaves building the pyramids. Most of the workers who helped build these monumental structures were actually paid laborers from nearby villages. It wasn't all hard labor for nothing. They were part of something much bigger. So, when you picture the pyramids, remember, they were built by a dedicated team of skilled workers, all playing their part in Egypt's grand history. Homes and family life of Egypt. Now let's spill the tea on how Egyptians lived, starting with their homes. Most houses were made from sun-dried mud bricks. Not exactly luxury living, but it worked. The thick walls kept the heat out, and the small windows didn't let too much sunlight in. Basically, a perfect way to beat the sweltering heat. And let's not forget the flat roofs. Family life was the foundation of society. Marriages were typically arranged, but both men and women played active roles in household affairs. Remarkably, Egyptian women had more rights than many of their ancient counterparts. They could own land, run their own businesses, and even initiate divorce, a rare level of independence in the ancient world. Children were considered blessings and were deeply loved. From an early age, they learned important life skills. Boys often followed in their father's footsteps, learning trades or crafts, while girls were taught how to manage a household. But life wasn't all work. Play was just as important. Food and clothing of Egyptians. Food in ancient Egypt? Oh, they knew how to keep it fresh. Bread and beer were everyday essentials, made from emmer wheat and barley. But don't think it was all carbs. Egyptians loved their veggies. Onions, garlic, leeks, and cucumbers were everyday delights, while dates, figs, and grapes were their sweet treats. For the rich folks, meat, fish, and honey were on the menu, making their feasts extra special. Talk about living the high life. When it came to clothing, the hot Egyptian climate called for cool, breathable linen. Men wore simple kilts, while women sported long dresses, both designed to keep them comfortable in the heat. The wealthy didn't stop there, of course. They draped themselves in gold jewelry and precious stones, making sure to shine in every possible way. Beauty was also important. Eyeliner was a must, and scented oils kept them smelling fresh and fabulous. The Egyptians had it down when it came to food, fashion, and making everyday life feel a bit more luxurious. Religion and beliefs. Religion was at the heart of ancient Egyptian life, influencing everything from daily routines to grand construction projects. Egyptians worshipped a multitude of gods and goddesses, each embodying aspects of the natural world and spiritual beliefs. Among the most revered were Ra, the powerful sun god, Osiris, who ruled over the afterlife, and Isis, the compassionate goddess of magic and motherhood. Anubis, the god associated with mummification, and Horus, the god of the sky and kingship, were also central figures in Egyptian worship. Temples were scattered across the land, dedicated to these deities, and priests played a key role in maintaining divine favor. They performed daily rituals and offerings, believing that keeping the gods pleased would ensure the prosperity of the land, including abundant harvests and protection against disaster. For the Egyptians, their gods were not just figures of worship, but powerful forces that shaped their entire existence. Death and the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed in life after death. They thought that after dying, the soul would journey through the underworld, face trials, and be judged by Osiris. If the person had lived a good life, they would enter the afterlife, a place filled with happiness, food, and loved ones. To prepare for this journey, Egyptians mummified their dead to preserve the body. The process took around 70 days and included removing internal organs, drying the body, and wrapping it in linen. Rich Egyptians were buried in elaborate tombs filled with goods they might need in the afterlife, such as furniture, food, clothes, and even servants carved from stone called shabtis. Architecture and achievements. When you think of ancient Egypt, it's impossible not to picture the towering pyramids and grand temples that still leave us in awe today. The Egyptians weren't just builders, they were master architects. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, isn't just a tomb. It's a feat of engineering that has stood the test of time. These massive structures were designed with incredible precision, even aligning with celestial bodies. And the pyramids were just the beginning. Temples like Karnak and Abu Simbel were monumental, adorned with intricate columns, statues, and carvings of gods and pharaohs, all telling stories of their reign and divine power. But the legacy of ancient Egypt doesn't stop at architecture. The Egyptians created hieroglyphic writing, a sophisticated system of symbols that captured their history, religion, and achievements. They also invented papyrus, an early form of paper that revolutionized writing and record-keeping. Their contributions to medicine were groundbreaking, with doctors using herbs, surgery, and early diagnostic techniques to heal the sick. And let's not forget their brilliance in mathematics and astronomy, which helped them build their monumental structures and understand the mysteries of the stars. Truly, Egypt's achievements still inspire and intrigue us to this day. Entertainment in ancient Egypt. Even the ancient Egyptians knew how to kick back and enjoy life. When they weren't busy building pyramids or tending to the land, they were indulging in music, dance, and storytelling. Harps, flutes and drums filled the air, while professional dancers performed at grand banquets, adding a touch of flair to the festivities. Storytellers, armed with tales of gods, pharaohs, and mythical creatures, captivated audiences of all ages with their engaging narratives. It was their version of Netflix and chill, but with way more flair. But the fun didn't stop there. Egyptians also loved a good game, with one of the most popular being Senet. This board game wasn't just for fun. It was believed to hold religious significance, connecting players with the gods. And when it came to physical activity, the Egyptians were no slouches. Wrestling, archery, and boat racing were some of the most thrilling sports, often enjoyed during lively festivals. Picture a bustling marketplace where families gathered to cheer on their favorite competitors or watch a high-energy race along the Nile. In ancient Egypt, work and play went hand in hand, proving that even the most impressive civilizations know how to unwind in style. In short, life in ancient Egypt was a balance of hard work, spiritual devotion, and cultural richness. Every layer of society, from the mighty pharaoh to the humble farmer, played a role in maintaining one of the most enduring civilizations in history.